Now, before we're able to create and configure this brush, we're going to need to get a reference to the sprite that we've selected from the tile picker. Let's go into our tile map and create a new getter. We'll make this a public method that'll return a sprite, and we'll call it current tile brush. For the getter, we'll have it return a sprite reference based on the tile ID. And make sure we cast this as a sprite. Next, in our tile map editor, we're going to need to create a method that will build and configure the tile brush. At the top of our tile map editor, let's create a new property to store a reference to the tile brush. It'll be a type tile brush, and we'll call it brush. Now at the end of our class, we're going to add the logic that'll create the tile brush. Here we'll create a private method called createBrush. Inside of this method, we'll need a reference to the sprite from the map. Next, we'll want to make sure that the sprite actually exists before we try to set it onto the game object. Here we'll do a condition to see if the sprite does not equal null. Once we know a sprite exists, we can actually create the brush instance. We'll create a game object called Go and make this a new game object and call it brush. Next, we'll set Go's transform parent to equal the map transform. This way our brush will be nested inside of our map within the hierarchy view. Now, let's create a reference to the brush. Here, we'll attach the tile brush component to the game object we just created, and that'll become the value of brush. And next, we'll want to add a sprite renderer to the game object we just created and set that to the brush renderer 2D's value. Next, we'll need a reference to the pixels to units. Here, we can get that from the map's own pixels to units value. Then we'll need to calculate the brush's size based on the pixels to units and the sprite's own size. For the X value, we're going to take the sprite's texture rect width and divide it by the pixels to units. We can now copy this line and paste it below and change width to height and close the parentheses on our vector 2. Now that we know the brush's size, we can pass in the new sprite so the brush can update its renderer. So this is all the logic that creates and instantiates our brush. In the next video, we'll wire it up so that we can see it in our scene view.